So I'm going to confess my darkest sin on planet Earth. Are you ready for it? The title gave it away. I don't enjoy free time when I work 9 to 5, or to be honest, a lot of work-related things in general. The thing is, for me, I've had times where, like particularly at university, where I actually had a lot of free time, so I know for a fact how my brain works. This is how I work. When I am working a lot, doing a lot of things, where even if it's not working 9 to 5, even if I'm just doing tasks, for example, what I find is when I have free time, my brain automatically goes, oh, okay, it puts me in a bad mood from the thing I had to do, and I'm already thinking about the next thing. Work is the best example of this. I talked about this in my other video where I talked about work being a psychological prison. It's like on a Sunday, my brain, this is my brain. I can pretend to the world that this isn't the case, but it is the case. My brain is like, oh, you've got to go to that place tomorrow. Oh, let's make us feel bad. My brain does this. There's something about like on a Sunday, I can't forget the fact that you've got to go back to the prison. It's like if someone said to you, oh, by the way, like, you see these things on like the news where someone, for example, or even when you study law, they talk about this. Like people have bail, for example, they do a crime, for example, and they get bail, and then they know that they're having a court hearing tomorrow, for example, and they know realistically they're going to get sentenced to 10 years in prison or something like this, right? Imagine being like, and these are real things, this happens for a lot of people. You're like, that you're going to court tomorrow, and you're probably going to go to prison for 10 years or something. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, I'm just going to have to make the most of this day. Like, no. Personally, I don't really know how criminals do it because, like, the idea of, like, having to go to prison just sounds like the worst thing possible. I actually don't even know how they can... I try very hard to understand people, to be honest with you, but, like, a lot of the criminal things, like, if you knew you'd go to prison for 10 years, it just doesn't seem worth it to me, but whatever, I don't know. Criminals, to me, make no sense, but I have tried to understand them, especially in anthropology, because I studied anthropology, for those who don't know. But, what I was trying to say is, like, when I have a lot of free time, I do a lot of things. Like I actually, okay, for example, we had a lunar eclipse at one point. I remember looking up at this lunar eclipse and I spent like half an hour just looking at it. Like literally, like I know half an hour doesn't sound like a long time, but I was literally just staring at like the moon. I was just like walking around out in the open. It's just beautiful. Like I had the time to do it. So I was really appreciating the lunar eclipse. There was another time where, this was actually last night as I'm filming this video. The moon was, maybe I should put photos of this, but the moon was very, very close to planet Earth. So as a result, the moon was like unnaturally bright last night. I took photos of it. It was incredible. The moon was really, really bright. And I remember going outside to look at the moon because I love the stars and the moon. And I was I also do a lot of tasks. I do a lot of stuff. And when I was outside, I had some tasks to do and I couldn't stop thinking about the tasks to do. So I was looking at the moon and I was like, oh, I've got to go in and do this. And so it kind of ruined the experience for me, to be honest with you. And that example illustrates the point really well. When I was looking at the lunar eclipse and the moon went like red, orange, I didn't have any real tasks to do. So I was just, oh, it's beautiful. And so with the last night looking at the moon, I had tasks to do. And it's sort of like, he put me in this like, oh, I've got to go back and do these things. And just kind of like, it illustrates the point. And I thought, I got to make a video about this because it's so true. It's how I feel. Whether you like it or not, it's how I feel. And if it resonates with you, please comment and share that. Because to be honest with you, when I have a lot of free time, my mind opens up. I get very I become very aware of like consciousness and life. I think about philosophical things. I read stuff and I think about like, I don't know, I even like, I'll look at things like, I'll look at Shakespeare and history and I'll look at photos of things and I'll read like all these things and I'll start little experiments. Like I got a custom light made from China in a factory where it's not infrared, but the light is almost infrared. So it's red light that's barely visible to the human eye. And I went outside in my garden. I was doing like experiments with UV and this 730 nanometer red light that I got custom manufactured. I'm a very unusual guy, so I get that. It's fine. It makes life fun for me to be like this. And so I was experimenting in the garden. I was doing all these things, and I was in this really good mood doing these things, and I didn't have any tasks to do at that point, so I was in a good mood. But when I have things to do, I get into a crap mood. I just don't enjoy life, to be honest with you. If you can relate to this, let me know. But working is the best example of this because when you go 9 to 5, you spend so much time for somebody else's dream. Even if it's like the government you're working for, even if it's a private company, it doesn't matter. You're making some institution do well, if at all, if your job's even that important, which a lot of the time it's not, to be honest. But you're doing something where it's like you're not really doing anything that useful. Often, well, I'm just being honest, a lot of office jobs, I'm just being honest, that's how I feel. I could be wrong, whatever. But you're doing something for someone else's dream, and then you don't have any time for yourself. And people say, oh, but you get Friday, Saturday, you get Sunday, whatever. The thing is, it's not the same because you know that you've got to go back, so it ruins the free time. And I'm talking over the period of days here. If you've ever taken like 4 weeks off or something, for example, you notice your mind will start to change. If you're watching this, try and think of a time you've taken time off. It's like or if you're unemployed or you don't have a job or whatever, it's like, or at university or whatever, it's like, you think differently. You think differently. When you have time off, you actually think differently. Like your brain, I find that when I'm not, like I have a lot of free time, my brain actually thinks differently. And I'm very receptive and I'm very like interested in life. And I spend a lot of time with like magnifying glasses, looking at bugs and snails. And I read a lot about trees and I'm interested in stuff, whales and I want to get a telescope and look at stars and like all these things I'm doing. But when I'm busy, I don't do any of this. I actually stop all this. I don't do anything. I don't watch any like nice, interesting videos. I don't do anything. I don't read interesting. I just do the work. And because that's what you're going to do in life. You've got to work to be successful. Because if you don't work, you're a piece of crap according to society. Unless you're born into a whole bunch of money, then that's completely different. And you can be an investor and do whatever you want because society is so fair and so logical. Humans are so smart. It's not like humans live in denial. No. Humans aren't in denial whatsoever. Humans are always logical and always right. We should worship every human being because every human being is a god, fuck my life. You just can't, like, human beings got to accept that we're all different. I accept this, we're all different. We're all different. Every human being is different, to be honest. Like, for me, being free is sort of like how I view the happiness of life. We don't know what life is. I say this all the time. We don't know what life is. So life doesn't have an inherent meaning that's obvious. People can have their religions and things and that and their theories, but we don't have an obvious solution, I'm sorry, but like a book isn't an obvious solution to me. I'm sorry. I don't look at a book and go, oh, that's clearly right. I don't know. And so when I look at something, when I have free time, I actually look at the wonder of life. I look up at the stars and go, wow, this is incredible. And I feel very connected to the universe. And I get this feeling of like, it doesn't matter what happens in life. I'm just living as a human. It's an experience. I feel good about that. But when I'm working, it takes away all the joy. I no longer feel like I like life, to be honest. I have to be very careful how I word this. But I basically, working full time, I don't really enjoy I just don't really enjoy it, to be honest with you. Even if the job's not so bad, I still don't enjoy it. This is the thing people don't get. They always want to go, oh no, the perfect job, there's a perfect, like a little puzzle piece. We all have a perfect job out there and you just got to find your little puzzle piece. It's like, well, maybe, but I don't think so, And that also, like, even if that was the case, I still like free time. This is the whole point. Even if you're doing something you like, I personally like free time more than I like doing working related tasks, okay? But the reason I do these things is just because of money. Because as I always say, money is the most important thing in this damn world planet. Now, obviously, if you're, dying of cancer, you're probably not going to think that way, and that's fair enough. But for the majority of cases, money would solve so many problems for so many people. I could be wrong, but for me, that's how it feels, okay? And so I've inadvertently just gone into a massive rant about this, but this is how I feel. And if you're someone who really values free time, let me know, because I feel like we're like outsiders. We're not allowed to say this, I talk about my uncle who's a musician, and like he's a musician, and he just loves free time and just playing music, and that makes him happy. He doesn't care. He's happy doing what he loves, But how dare he do that? People have said things to him about this, I know so many people in life. Like I had this friend of mine. He had a lot of free time, and I've talked about him in other videos. He was on this thing called the disability support pension. It's like a welfare thing for mental illness. I'm not really, how do I say it? He had schizophrenia, and he had a lot of free time, and he was very fun. He always had these interesting theories about life. And as soon as he got this full-time job, all the good conversation, like I'm serious, all the good conversation stopped. All of it stopped. He didn't want to talk about like he had all these theories about like aliens. He was like, okay, so if aliens, I'm not one of those people who really like, I don't know, there could be aliens, who knows? But he had these theories like, oh, what if aliens like came and what would they think? And like, because I study anthropology, he's like, oh, what would they ask you? And we had these fascinating things like, what if aliens had religion and how would they look at, like, it was fascinating. And all that stopped when he got a job. He stopped caring about the interesting things in life. He always had these, like, he knew all about history. He'd always tell you about, oh, which dictator did this and which leader did this and what would a leader do if that and what would happen if World War I happened this way. And he had all these alternate theories and fascinating person. I'm telling you, probably one of the most fascinating people I'd ever met in my life. This guy was so fascinating. He gets this job, he stops all the conversation. He'll still talk, but it's like oh yeah, so my job, all he talks about is his job and his emails and his boss. I don't care, It's like, oh, what happens to that really? It's because he works full time, and he told me he's got schizophrenia, so he has to like, he has to hold down the job, and so it's affected his mind. He's just an example of a person that I've experienced this on an extreme end for, but the point still stands. Like I've had so many friends, like at university particularly, I had like the most incredible friends you could ever ask for. Then one of my friends, my best friends at the time, he got this like really intense full-time job where I think he was doing like some sort of security for the government or something, some really like high thing where he was like secretive. And then I remember he was just like never free, like he was always tired, he was never free to hang out, he was always just like dull, like not dull, but he was just like, it takes a toll on people. Like when you're busy, it takes a toll. Now look, if you want to be busy, that's amazing. What I do is just what I do. This is just a YouTube video. I am just a person. I'm just a content creator. I'm just a human. I'm a flawed human, we're all humans, And so I feel that I like free time, but if you like to be busy, and I know many people that are like this, have fun with your life. Really, I'm not saying that sarcastically. Have an awesome life. Really, like if you like to be busy and that gets you through the human experience, fantastic. If you're doing something and you help, whatever, great. I just don't feel that way. And I just don't think everyone feels this way, you know? And so it's important to address this topic that I don't think life is that great when you don't have a lot of free time. I said it, that's how I feel, and thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.